Good day everyone, I am Janibel P. Fabe, a BS in Social Studies student second year, Section A. And today we will tackle Chapter 15 of the World History, which is The United States Arises. The United States of America began as a colony of many immigrants, except for the American Indians. Of all its original inhabitants were immigration of the European settlers and African slaves. For many years, the European settlers thought America was the land of new beginnings and opportunity. They could pick up gold and silver or get rich from a tobacco and indigo plantations and then return to the old world, which is Europe, to enjoy their new wealth. By the 18th century, however, the Europeans began to think of themselves as Americans, and their country as a nation with a destiny of its own. As time went on, the idea of national independence increased. The new nation grew powerful, and America eventually surpassed most European countries in the achievement of a democratic society and of national greatness. The U.S. annexed the Philippines and other Spanish colonies in the 1890s and went on to become the most powerful and richest country in the 20th century. In this chapter, we will learn how the United States started as a European colony and developed as an industrial giant in the 19th century. So, we will learn that Christianity was a source of American greatness. So now let's move on to the New World. America became known as Mundus Novus, or the New World, due to Amerigo Vespucci, a German geographer, gave the name America to the New World on honor of the banker of Columbus' voyage. Being named after a capitalist was prophetic because America would become the world's leading capitalist nation. From its birth, America was a land of opportunity and new wealth for settlers and immigrants. America also is a Christian and democratic nation because of the Pilgrim Fathers. In chapter 13, the previous lessons, we learned that in 1620s, Puritan Christians from England sailed on the Mayflower to the New World in search of freedom. So when they arrived after a difficult passage, they dictated their newfound plan to God and to their freedom. The next one, the nation of immigrants. From the 16th to 17th centuries, Spanish, British, French, Dutch, and Swedish peoples colonized various parts of the North America. Their land did not have a national name yet. To the British, it was known as the 13th colonies, and to the Spanish, it was California or Florida, and to the French, it was Louisiana. Everybody in the colonies except for the native Indian tribes was an immigrant or a relative one. America was a nation of immigrants, and by the middle of 18th century, the 13th British colonies in America had outgrown their baby clothes and they yearned for independence. So as they joined Adams, and one of the founding fathers of the nation wrote, the revolution happened long before the war began. Nation of Christian. Historians note the great moves in American history were preceded by Christian revivals. In the 1730s to 1750s, a spiritual revival called the Great Awakening broke out in the colonies due to the influence of Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield. They were two Christian evangelists. And the Great Awakening encouraged an individual religious experience more than church membership. It helped to reform the character of the new immigrants and to unite them as brothers in a new nation. The spiritual awakening unified the American colonies that had not been achieved before, preparing the way for the War of Independence in 1775. And that would be all for my part, and I will give the floor to the next reporter, Ms. Lehman.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for that, Miss Fabe. Now, let's move on to the next part of our report. So, you guys, are you ready? All right. Now, let's discuss about the growth of the United States. First, the impact of the American Revolution. The American established a new country instead of monarchy. They changed it into a democratic republic that protects the liberties of its citizens. This democracy has influenced a lot of different countries. American Revolution symbolizes a dramatic triumph of people against abusive rulers. Growth of the United States and a second Great Awakening. The Second Great Awakening in the 19th century encourages the distribution of the Bible and Bible tracts by Christian organization and Christian society. This encouraged the abolition of slavery, women's suffrage, and person reform, and liquor ban. Now let's talk about the Monroe Doctrine. After it secured the independence, the United States became a beacon of democracy and freedom for other countries. The Monroe Doctrine saved the newly independent republics of Latin America. The Gettysburg Address, President Abraham Lincoln wanted to refresh the ideals for the river fighting. His speech became the most classical speeches for democracy. During the American colonial era, Filipinos memorized and cited this speech as part of their training for democracy. Now let's move on to the American Civil War. If the War of the United States was a war for independence, historians regard that it was a war against slavery, and it offered the so-called natural right that all men are created equal regardless of their color. But Americans were still forced to work even after the independence. Abraham Lincoln became the 16th United States President. He was known to favor the emancipation. Emancipation means freedom of the American slaves who worked in southern plantations. Now let's talk about the profile of the nation. 3.5 million African slaves were freed. Second, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in April 14, 1865. Before the civil rights, the most powerful class in America was the plantation of aristocracy in the southern state. Now let's talk about the America as a world of power. The United States emerged as an industrialized country. Its small industries grow into giant industries. America's industrial production was accelerated by mass production, being business and good labor treatment. In over 200 years, the United States has been one of the most stable and richest and most developed country in the world. And that's it for our report for this afternoon. We do hope that you guys learned something new for today's discussion. Again, thank you and God bless.